Next video. The most powerful kid in history. A Fern video. Lock the f in.
Beijing, China. It's just after nightfall in the year 1908. A mysterious group leaves the Forbidden City. Servants, mounted imperial guards, the palace chamberlain. It's an official escort plus security detail. But they're not taking someone out of the city. They're on a mission to bring someone back. They travel north until they arrive at a red-gated mansion, the home of Prince Chun. He is not expecting visitors, but the imperial procession is not here for him. They're looking for his 2-year-old son. The little boy is afraid of the strangers and hides in a cupboard. The servants try to pull him out and carry him away, but the boy resists. He screams, he sobs, he scratches and wails. When they finally manage to calm him down, they take him back to the Forbidden City. This little 2-year-old boy was just chosen to rule China. His name is Puyi.
Rule China at 2? I've heard of, like, powerful kids of kings. I've even heard of, like, teenagers running empires. Not a 2-year-old being chosen. I mean, I presume they wouldn't actually take charge of anything until much later, but why were they chosen at 2? Because it's not like the new Dalai Lama being chosen or something, like the ruler of China. You know the weird... Okay, I'm going to start out with a weird fact here. Kings' kids in, like, the Roman Empire, or just basically any empire in that fact, were so powerful, not by the decisions they were able to make, but almost how untouchable they were, to where they were usually the most annoying people ever. So far so that they had to basically employ other children to befriend the king's kids, and when the king's kid would act up, they would whip the king's kid's friend. Because you weren't allowed to... The only person that was allowed to punish the king's kids were the king himself and maybe the mom or, you know, the parents. But you weren't allowed to hurt the king's son. So the only way they were able to basically instill morality into this kid to where he wasn't able to do whatever he wanted was they would get... It was called the whipping boy. And it was an actual... not career, but it was a thing that, like, lower income families' kids would kind of enroll in, to where the king and that kid would become... The king's son and that kid would become friends. And so if that guy, the son, had any morality, he would notice that every time he did something wrong, his friend would get hurt, and in turn make the connection that I shouldn't do this, otherwise there are bad consequences. Even if it's not to him, you just try to you're not manipulating the prince, but you're basically instilling, like, hey, if you care about this kid, you won't do fucked up stuff. That's messed up. It's messed up, but it makes sense for how else are you going to instill morality in a kid that has unlimited riches and basically unlimited power and can do anything he wants without being touched? You have to fuck up his friends. You have to take out the people that he cares about that don't have any, you know, restrictions on hurting them effectively.
And the Chinese people will regard him as a living god. This video is largely based on the excellent book, The Last Emperor by Edward Beer. Find the link in the description. It's Puyi's coronation ceremony, and the boy can't take it anymore. For what seems like an eternity, they paraded before him. Strange men speaking strange words, ministers, palace guard officers, other officials. They approach and perform a ritual bow, kneeling 3 times and touching their heads against the ground 9 times. A kowtow. Each man pledges his allegiance, words that mean nothing to the young boy. To the 2-year-old, it's incomprehensible and frightening. The one person who could soothe him, who would calm him down and make him feel safe, isn't there. His wet nurse. Puyi is not allowed to see his mother, and Nurse Wang is her replacement. She plays with him, breastfeeds him, sleeps next to him. She's his main comfort and favorite companion. But she has been excluded from the ceremony. Puyi begins to fidget. Also, he's cold. The hall is freezing. He tells his father, Prince Chun, that he wants to go home. Then he starts crying. Prince Chun is desperate. No occasion could be more important than this.
Yeah, bro, but I mean, like, you're expecting a fucking 2-year-old to not freak out at any minor thing that upsets them? Yeah, he's like 2 years old.
He tries to soothe his son, saying that it'll be over soon. Those words may have comforted Puyi. To the palace staff who
That sucks. Being chosen to rule China at 2. I don't want to say that's like... I mean, being king in a lot of senses is great because you're like, you know, set. But that, like, I think being in the royal family now is fire as relation. Being born into the British royal family, yeah, you have jobs, but you're not actually running the country. Like, you know, what is it? The prime minister of the United Kingdom would. Like, you have much less on you and what you have to do. Being a king in, like, the 1500s, yeah, like, you have the power and that's nice, but you're also, like, responsible for maintaining, like, peace and integrity of the people, which is terrible and an annoying task to have.
overhear them, though, they sound like a grim prophecy, not only about the emperor's reign, but about the fate of the Qing dynasty itself.
I would never want to be king, though. Reading Marcus Aurelius's, not even just the 2-year-old, but reading Marcus Aurelius's meditations shows you the level of stress you would have. Why? Because there's so much going through your head. You're not allowed to be a regular person, and the power goes to your head. Marcus Aurelius in Meditations talks about, I'll make a whole philosophy video about this one day, but he talks about, like, basically constantly having to ground himself and remind himself of who he is, because many people that inherit that level of royalty, fame, and power go power crazy and want everything because their starting point is so high that they have to go higher. Like, if you're broke and then you gain wealth, you're going to be a lot happier than somebody that's born rich and I don't know how to describe this accurately, but if you're born with little to no power and no money, and then you get, like, medium high wealth, you're going to be happier than somebody that's born with medium wealth and stays at medium wealth. Or somebody that's born with high wealth and then either decreases or just stays the same, because they don't understand the appreciation for it. I don't want to say that being born rich is bad, because it's not, right? But when you can tell with influencers and famous people and just rich people in general who actually appreciates that money. Because you can see rich people in public that wear and fucking buy Gucci, Chanel, rich cars, fancy jewelry, and they treat it like they're buying a fucking protein bar at a goddamn gas station. They don't give a fuck. But then there's people that still buy that and understand. I don't want to use him as a specific example, but the person that, like, instantly comes to my mind is Leo Skeppy on TikTok. The 6'5" bald gay guy. Very nice, right? At least in what I've seen, right? I don't know everything about the dude, but he makes rants and he'll just buy very expensive shit. But he's not like, yeah, I just got a Gucci bag. He's like, I just got a Gucci bag, and he'll giggle because he, like, you could tell he fucks with the stuff that he's getting. He's rich now, but, like, he appreciates it.
When the boy took the throne, he became the ruler of nearly a third of the world's population. China has been ruled by dynasties for more than 2,000 years, and the power of the emperor has remained unchanged since then. On paper, it was virtually limitless. The Qing emperor was arguably the most powerful human being on Earth. But actually, China and its dynasty have been in decline for a long time. A series of internal power struggles have weakened the position of the emperor, leading to this one seemingly bizarre moment. But in fact, Puyi was not selected as emperor in spite of his age, but because of it.
They chose to make a 2-year-old emperor.
Is Tsuchi, also known as the Dragon Lady. As a teenager, she was chosen to be a concubine of the emperor. After his death, she seized control of the empire and effectively ruled China for nearly 50 years as Empress Dowager. To maintain her power, she installed underage boys as puppet emperors. But as the last of them grew older, tensions arose.
Oh, so she was ruling behind the scenes, but having somebody that was forefront as emperor. Isn't that kind of what, okay, not proven, but isn't that what is speculatively happening with Kim Jong-un? Where a lot of people try to say that Kim Jong-un's sister is actually the one that rules and runs North Korea, and he is effectively a figurehead. Like, he doesn't really, he calls shots, but like, she's the fucking front man.
She's willing to do anything to hold on to power. After losing a war against Japan, China was in heavy debt. As a partial payment, Tzu allows foreign forces to claim territory and valuable resources. China is weakened, the population oppressed, and the Forbidden City, a place of intrigue and conspiracy. Tzu is...
Okay, I'm going to say something, and I have no idea if it's relatable, but out of world map, out of all of the countries, I feel like I know, hold up. I feel like when I look at the world, and this is like specifically in GeoGuessr too, I have no idea what's going on here. No idea what's going on here. It just from the United States perspective, yeah, I don't know what's happening in a lot of countries. I have genuinely no clue what life is like in Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Mongolia. Like, I don't know this area. Or even like China beyond north of like here. Literally the only thing I know about Kazakhstan is Borat. And that's not an accurate representation of Kazakhstan.
Is under massive pressure. Her health has been deteriorating. She urgently needs a new puppet. Technically, as long as Puyi is still underage, his father, Prince Chun, will be regent. He himself is loyal to Tzu. He's also incompetent, unlikely to outshine her. Exactly what she needs. After little Puyi has been seized from his home, everything seemed to be working out for her. The day after, as expected, her previous puppet emperor died. He was poisoned. But before Tzu can make her next moves, she too dies, and a 2-year-old sits on the throne.
Oh my god! No! So they were gonna put him as emperor so she could basically puppet master pull the strings with him just as like a figurehead, and then she dies. So now there's like a literal 2-year-old running China.
Of course, all of this is lost on Puyi. All he knows is that some important-looking people...
Well, no, he has his dad.
...took him away from his mom, put him in a fancy robe, and are doing all sorts of strange things in front of him now. The reason is that he's no longer considered an ordinary toddler. From now on, to everyone he encounters, he's a living god. Three years later, Puyi is 5 years old now, and this is what a typical day of his might have looked like. He opens his eyes. He's on a massive kang, the platform bed where he sleeps every night, snuggled against Nurse Wang. Puyi must get dressed. Custom dictates that the clothes he wears must never have been worn before. Yesterday,
he has to wear new clothes every day. So where does his old, do they give away?
His outfit, his silk tunic, padded waistcoat, sable jacket, and fur-lined coat has already been disposed of.
Oh, don't tell me they throw it out. They should just give it to somebody.
Of course, he's not going to dress himself. As with everything, the eunuchs will take care of it. They are his servants.
I don't see how a life like this wouldn't cause just absurd narcissism. It's one way or the other. Living and growing up in this environment, you're either going to despise it and loathe yourself, or you're going to love it. And it's going to be like, you're the fucking top of the world. You think you're better than everybody.
If you want to serve in the imperial court of the Qing dynasty, you have to become a eunuch. That means you have to cut off your penis, scrotum, and testicles.
What? What? Hold up, what the fuck?
If you want to serve in the imperial court of the Qing dynasty, you have to become a eunuch. That means you have to cut off your penis, scrotum, and testicles. It would guarantee that the emperor...
What's scrotum? How do you cut off your scrotum? Oh, that's your nutsack. Just say nutsack. How do they pee? Oh my god, they have to chop it off themselves? Stop. I know that in medieval times, they used to chop guys' nuts off so their voice wouldn't go high enough or wouldn't get deep enough so they could sing in like opera and for like musical purposes. That doesn't seem as bad as chopping the whole thing off, though.
It would guarantee that the emperor is the only fertile man in the palace. Therefore, every child that was born here had to be his. Like all male Qing subjects, eunuchs wear a queue.
Wow, so it would make sure that it was never like a who's the father?
Only a particular kind of eunuch, eunuchs of the imperial presence, were allowed to look at Puyi. All others had to...
Bro, nah, man. I'm not going to get over that. That's all I'm going to be thinking about the rest of the fucking video.
look at the ground or turn away. They had no beards, their heads were bowed, their voices were high, since most had been castrated before puberty. Since tradition dictated a person couldn't reach heaven if they weren't buried whole, the eunuchs
But were they chosen for this, or they decided to do this?
carried their removed genitals at all times, in little jars.
What? What? They carry it around? What, for proof? No. Why don't they just chop his... No. Why do they gotta cut the dick off, though? Genuine question. Because if you chop your nuts off, you're not having kids. Why do they gotta chop the... Now you're just making life harder. I'm not getting that. Why are we chopping... Just chop the nuts off, and then I'm getting it, right? Okay, I'm not getting it. But it's not as appalling to me. If it's like chop the nuts off, now it's, he's the only one that has kids. Okay. Why do you got to chop the fucking pee tube?
The eunuchs carried their removed genitals at all times, in little jars filled with salt water.
That's disgusting.
The emperor is hungry.
I'm not trying to judge right now. I'm really not trying to judge right now. But the idea of having to carry around your severed penis and balls in a fucking jar with salt water for your whole life sounds horrible. When did they stop doing this?
Buffet for him. Now, like every other day, he must pay a visit to the eastern palaces. Here, his other mothers live, 5 women who were either married to or concubines of the 2 previous emperors. To get to the eastern palaces, Puyi must take a walk.
I need to ask my friend if he knows about... I have a friend that was born in China and lived there for like a period in time. Obviously, this was a long time ago, but I wonder if he knows anything about this.
Wherever Puyi goes, dozens of eunuchs accompany him. One walks 30 yards in front, warning people to make way. Then come 2 chief eunuchs, walking on either side of the path. Then, about 2 feet behind, the center of the procession, Puyi. He is walking, and 2 junior eunuchs attend him on either side. Then come eunuchs of the imperial presence, carrying clothing, parasols, a canopy. Then more eunuchs still, carrying boxes of cakes and delicacies. Then eunuchs of the imperial dispensary. And finally, at the rear, eunuchs carrying chamber pots and commodes.
I mean, this just seems like a waste of resources.
If along the way, Puyi realizes he needs to use the toilet, the eunuchs will be there, rushing forward with a chamber pot, and then rushing away with it to inspect the outcome. Puyi...
I know. Inspect the outcome? What do you mean? What do you mean inspect the outcome? Like they have to look at the poop? Why?
Puyi arrives. According to ritual, each mother asks after Puyi's health.
I'm being mean. I know. I feel like I'm being rude. I feel like I need to stop. I need to stop. Am I being rude? I'm really not trying to, because I understand this is like a cultural thing, but it's just like, this is so far off what I assumed this video was going to be about. Like they're making him, I understand like the whole changing clothes every day as a part of like custom, but like, or culture, but like, why do they have to look at his poop?
Though whether they care is less clear. Long Yu, for her part, believes little boys should be kept in good health by half-starving them. She holds considerable power over Puyi. She is the widow of Guangshu, Puyi's poisoned predecessor. She is Prince Chun's co-regent. In a few years, she will banish Puyi's beloved nurse Wang, not even allowing her to say goodbye. Though Puyi hates all of his mothers, he has a special hatred for Long Yu. On the way back, Puyi is in a bad mood. Suddenly, he makes a decision. 2 of the eunuchs offended him. It's not clear how, but either way, he wants them to be flogged. The 2 offending eunuchs
The fuck does that mean?
are made to expose their bottoms. 2 other eunuchs come forward.
This shit ain't real, bro. They're letting a 5-year-old fucking decide who gets beaten.
The eunuchs are beaten on the spot.
I need to read the comments. It's hard to grasp that Puyi's younger brother died in 2015. Age of Empire that seems so ancient, distant, yet so close. Puyi's younger brother. When was this kid alive? Gotta feel bad for the kid. Oh, yeah. He has to do it. Like, he was born into this. But at the same time, I feel like it's... Like, this is what I mean. Like, now the kid's just gonna abuse the power.
Puyi watches, and there's delight in his eyes. Back at the Hall of Super...
See, that's bad. Like, that's not good. That the kid is enjoying... He's showing schadenfreude at 5.
Supreme Harmony, he listens as court officials drone on and on. They speak of matters of state, providing information incomprehensible to the little boy. They come with documents, each requiring the seal of the emperor. He applies the seal again and again and again, under the supervision of his...
What's that? Pleasure at somebody else's pain. The enjoyment of seeing other people suffer. The Eunyak thing was abolished in 1924. What is that? Oh, the castration. I mean, that was over 100 years ago. I feel mean, dude. I feel like I shouldn't have laughed at that. It was just like, I did not assume that
terribly boring
was ever going to be the route this video went down.
As regent, Prince Jun holds the real power.
Well, because I do philosophy and shit, and I try my hardest to, like, understand everybody's, like, culture and religion, or, like, what they believe, or how things were historically.
Power and makes the real decisions. But the seal must be applied by the hand of the emperor. At last, after hours of talk and ceremony, Puyi is free. He wants to be entertained. There's no real friend to play with, but the eunuchs are not only his servants, but also his entertainers. One of his favorite eunuchs puts on a puppet show. Puyi loves it, and he comes up with an idea. He wants to reward the puppet master with a cake. But before presenting the gift, he asks Nurse Wang to fill it with sharp pieces of metal.
Like, this is what I'm talking about. Giving any child this amount of power.
He tells her that he wants to see what the eunuch looks like when he eats it.
That's sadistic. I'm literally, bro, I literally called this. This is why you don't, historically, giving any child this level of power is so bad. Even, like, dude, modern day, like, kids that blow up and get fame from a young age, and that level of power, like, corrupts them.
Wang manages to convince him to fill the cake with dried beans instead.
Okay.
Now, Puyi asks for his air gun. He's looking for a practice target, and chooses the eunuchs. But shooting eunuchs is only fun for so long. He's bored again. He sees a piece of dirt on the floor. He points at it and tells one of the eunuchs, "Eat that for me." And if a living god...
Dude, there's no way. And I feel like being one of these eunuchs, you would have to have a level of doubt where you're like, dude, I cut my dick off for this kid. Like, I cut my dick off and he's making me eat dirt. Like, this is so fucked. Like, they're dedicating their lives for this, and now this kid's basically just, like, I don't want to say torturing them, but like borderline, like, fucking, not even bullying, beyond that.
At night is when the little boy feels safest, curled up in the arms of Nurse Wang. Sometimes he still misses his biological mother, but his memory of her is already hazy. He won't be allowed to see her again until he is 13. Puyi lives an isolated life. He has no idea that beyond the walls of the Forbidden City, the country which he is technically the emperor of, is in turmoil. It's October 1911. In Wuchang, a group of soldiers mutiny, turning against their corrupt generals. This uprising soon spreads all over the country and turns into a full-blown rebellion against the dynasty. The Chinese people are fed up. 4 wars and increasing Western incursions have decreased China's territory, and the majority Han population has been sick of Manchu rule for centuries. The people begin to dream of a more unified republic. Then the imperial army flips, siding with the rebels, leaving the dynasty without military defense. By February 1912, Prince Chun has renounced his position as regent. Empress Dowager
So what the fuck? So now he actually just runs the country?
Liu also steps down and agrees to Puyi's abdication. And just like that, the Qing dynasty is no more. China is now a republic. With the new freedom...
So what the fuck did he do?
So, is this the end of Puyi's reign? Not entirely. For the majority of the traditional Chinese population, The idea of a country without a monarch is odd. Abolishing the dynasty
Oh, so is it like a symbolic, like he still stays just basically a figurehead?
entirely is unthinkable. So the new rulers negotiate an agreement with the old monarchs. Puyi would be allowed to live on in the Forbidden City with his servants and personal fortune, plus an annual allowance of roughly 3.4 million US dollars in today's money.
Wow.
Even though Puyi officially abdicated the throne, he continues to sit on it, and he continues to put the imperial seal upon court documents. But now these documents concern insignificant matters, staff promotions, the transplantation of trees, when the eunuchs should change their uniforms. The Forbidden City has become a place of make-believe, and it begins to feel like a golden cage, one that Puyi will want to break out of very soon.
Yeah, so he's not putting stamps on anything of importance anymore. It's just like, literally, like symbolic stupid shit that he has to sign.
8 years later, a well-dressed British gentleman enters the Forbidden City. He will bring chaos to the divine palaces.
1919.
His name is Reginald Johnston. Johnston is a respected Chinese linguist, a poet and calligraphist. Now he will be the English teacher of China's emperor. But Johnston begins to secretly teach Puyi Western history and philosophy. Up until this point, the young emperor only studied...
I need to look up Puyi. He died when he was 61. He died in 1967. Puyi's son, though, Yuyan. Yuyan died in 1997. Hang Zhen is alive, though. His grandchild, Puyi's grandson, is alive. Wow. I thought this was way older.
Studied Chinese classics, but under Johnston's influence, Puyi falls in love with British culture, and he starts to change. Normally, all male subjects of the Qing dynasty were required to wear a queue, but soon, Puyi will just cut his off, a major offense to the tradition. He begins to dress like an English gentleman instead. He starts speaking a mix of English and Chinese, and from now on, he will call himself Henry. Puyi also wears glasses, which the dowager consorts will not approve of. He will ride a bike through the Forbidden City and fall in love with movies. But
wow, so he really, like, abandoned the whole, like, emperor thing.
most of all, he will become obsessed with a strange new invention from the West, the telephone. He makes calls to people in Beijing and hangs up before announcing who it is. One time, he orders a meal to a false address, likely the first royal prank call in history. Puyi increasingly gets an idea of what the outside world might actually look like, and everything he's missing out on. He announces that once he's old enough,
is he not allowed to leave?
he wants to leave the country and study
Oh.
at Oxford, just like his teacher. On June 3rd, 1922, he tries to make this dream come true. He asks Reginald Johnston to sneak him out of the Forbidden City,
Oh, is he not allowed to leave? Like, is he stuck there?
but Johnston, the man who planted all these dreams in Puyi's head, refuses. If Puyi were to leave, Johnston would lose his position, with all its perks and status. Puyi has no one else to help him escape, and though he doesn't fully realize it yet, he's being entrapped even further.
Wow.
The dowager consorts, who also depend on him for their livelihood, have figured out a way to make escape impossible. Puyi faces a decision. He must choose a bride. His only guide, these 4 photographs, selected by the dowager consorts. He is 16 years old. The pictures
Oh, I thought he was like fucking 30 in this.
are small, the faces of the women difficult to see. He draws a circle around one that looks pretty. This is Wenxiu, a 12-year-old Manchu girl. But the dowager consorts don't consider her a suitable first choice. She's an aristocrat, but she's too poor to be empress. He chooses again. This time he points to a 15-year-old girl from a prominent rich family. The dowager consorts are pleased. Her name is Wang Rong. 2 tiny pictures. One will be his wife, one will be his consort. He's encouraged
What's a consort?
to point to other pictures to choose secondary consorts,
What is a consort?
but Puyi refuses.
And now I gotta Google this. A wife, husband, or companion, in particular, the spouse of a reigning monarch. So the wife, what's the difference? Like, I don't want to use this, like, in a fucking, like, it sound like a dumbass. Like a side piece, like somebody else that you're not married to, but you like a mistress.
One is enough. The pictures he selected are taken away. He won't see either girl until his wedding night. A couple of months later, just after the wedding, Puyi is with his empress wife for the first time. He has no experience with women. Now, on his first wedding night, he's supposed to consummate the marriage.
So he's never flirted or talked to a woman, and he has to have sex the first day he meets this woman. Oh my god, I feel so bad for judging, bro. Like, this life sucks. Like, this life sucks. I mean, I've been saying that since the start, but they're like, when they were like, yeah, he has to chop his dick off, that shit appalled me. The whole fucking looking at the poop thing, that was nuts. And now he has to choose somebody to marry off 4 pictures and have sex the first day he meets them. Yeah, no, the other shit was, yeah, the
How?
consort thing.
No one told him how this works. He panics and runs away.
Nobody ever explained sex to him. And he never, tried anything because he's never flirted with a woman. So he's now just having sex.
Puyi didn't consummate his marriage then, and it's probable he never did.
Oh.
When asked many years later, Puyi's little brother said the ex-emperor was found to be biologically incapable of producing children. This may have been literally true, but some historians speculate that this was a euphemism, that Puyi was, in fact, homosexual. The years after Puyi's abdication are years of chaos. The first Chinese premier declares himself emperor. A few weeks later, he abdicates. 6 months later, he's dead. Meanwhile, warlords fight all over the country, and Western powers continue to assert economic and territorial influence through concessions. China is weak, fragmented, and without central leadership. In November 1924, one of the warlords takes control of Beijing and forces Puyi to leave the Forbidden City. He can keep his private wealth, and he'll get money from the state, but his days as emperor are finally over. To Puyi, now 18 years old, this doesn't sound too bad.
Bro, the way they're timing these, I know they keep showing the year, but like so much is happening that I keep thinking it's like a massive time skip. And then they're like, okay, now it's been a year and he's 17. I'm like, bro, what?
He always wanted to live an ordinary life. From this day forward, he'll be a private citizen, free to do whatever he wants. But his freedom will look quite different from what he expected. 26 years later, in a Chinese prison, to be more precise, the Fushun War Criminals Management Center. The dynasty is no more. The republic is no more either. After a brutal civil war, Mao Zedong and the Chinese Communist Party have seized power, and they've installed re-education centers all over the...
Yo, I love that I'm learning about the history of China, though. Because the only thing that I knew about the history of China was like Mao Zedong onwards.
Prisons and labor camps where enemies undergo communist brainwashing and harsh conditions. They either learn to be communists or die in the process.
Wow.
This is one of them. Prisoner number 981 is weak and absurdly incompetent. He only recently learned to tie his shoes and brush his teeth. He is hopelessly untidy and constantly forgets simple actions, like turning off the faucet after use. Before his imprisonment in 1950, he'd never have to do such things. They'd been done for him.
Oh, he always has had somebody do it. He didn't know how to tie his shoes, and he was 40 years old.
He'd been a living god, after all. Now, like so many others, he's going through so-called remolding. He's compiled a list of Japanese crimes in Manchuria. He attended presentations by Japanese war criminals. These crimes, he was to blame for them, he begins to realize. For this is Puyi, the prison's so-called #1 traitor. After leaving the Forbidden City, he aligned himself with the Japanese. They first housed him in Tianjin, then enthroned him as emperor of the Japanese puppet state of Manchukuo in Manchuria. The region was invaded by Japan in 1931. For 11 years, he'd been the puppet emperor once again, controlled by the Japanese, legitimizing their myriad war crimes in Manchuria. When the Soviets invaded Manchuria in 1945, Puyi had been captured. Tried as a war criminal at the military tribunal for the Far East, he'd lied shamelessly to save his skin, disavowing all responsibility for his role as a ruler and blaming the Japanese, his former ally. Shortly after the Chinese Communist Party came to power in 1949, the Soviets sent him back to China. Now in Fushun prison, he's being remolded. The Chinese communists realize he's a powerful symbol, an incarnation of everything they're against: decadent imperialism and capitalist greed.
What's so weird is they see him as a god, but he effectively was a puppet his entire life. He had the choices of small matters. He had infinite wealth and could do whatever he wanted to his own people directly next to him. But everybody in reality was above him, just using his status to achieve things.
If he can be turned into a communist, anyone can. It would be the ultimate symbol of their ideological supremacy. Puyi will spend 9 years at the prison camp, listening to lectures, grappling with his guilt, committing to paper his many sins. In the end, he is released, weak, shrunken, and humble. Puyi is now a true believer, a die-hard communist. At least, that's what he says. After being released from prison, Puyi moved in with his sister in Beijing. One time, he even worked as the tour guide in the Forbidden City, the place where he was once crowned the emperor of the 4th largest dynasty in human history, ruling over a third of the world's
Oh,
population.
that fucking sucks, dude. Having to be a tour guide of where you previously ruled.
A private citizen at last, Puyi eventually took a job as a gardener, working quietly among the plants. It seemed that Puyi at least found some sort of freedom. Throughout his life, he has worn many faces. As a toddler, he was traumatized by a sudden kidnapping. As a boy, he took pleasure in torturing innocent servants. As a teenager, he dreamed of becoming an Oxford student. As Emperor of Manchukuo, he was complicit in horrendous crimes against humanity. And as a prisoner, he was repentant and humble. He died
Dude, he lived like fucking 5 different lives.
on 17 October 1967.
What did he die of? Cancer. I don't know, man. That video was confusing. If I was disrespectful at all, you know, I gotta say again, I apologize. It's just like, I had no idea about any of this, and that took me fucking off guard, bro. Next.